you'll, I send out a collegiate little, here's what I've heard lately and what's going on. There's nothing else about it. I'll send my email address in the chat room. Brandon, if I started today, how long would it take me to get a beard like that?
That depends on how neglectful you are.
Yeah.
Do I need to take drugs, protein, biotin?
Just stop shaving.
I was going to say, leave it alone, Wendell. Just don't touch it. I want to welcome everyone to the Reality Therapy Corner. We started the recording. We try to do it right at 12 noon to respect everybody's time of 1 hour. My name is Vicki Harris. I'm out of Indianapolis, Indiana. Committee chairman for the counseling committee, and this started several years ago with the intention to have conversations exploring the richness of the practice of reality therapy and so much more. And Frenchie, that's how I've known him for years and years, is our guest speaker today. His real name is Francesco Bazzocchi, and I think I said it right. From Canada. I'm going to have him introduce himself. I think, David, you're from Canada, right? And then Brandon, you said you were from Canada? No, where are you from, Brandon?
I may be your southernmost caller today. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama.
Wow.
Alabama.
Wow,
Welcome.
look at this.
And we have Rena. And where are you from, Rena? I can't remember.
Sorry, I'm in Albuquerque, but I'm actually mostly from Tennessee. So hi, Alabama. I'm gonna log off and be right back, though. I need to fix something, but
Okay.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Welcome back.
And we have 3 others that I haven't met. If they want to come on and introduce yourself, is it VJ? We have someone that says FB. Go ahead, VJ.
Yeah, I'm from Ottawa, Canada as well.
Oh, Canada.
Hi,
Welcome.
VJ. Welcome. I'm also FB. I'm on 2 devices, just so that you know, so I can, because when I share the PowerPoint, I rarely are able to see the faces. So I like, if you see me turning my head, that's why.
Okay, and we have Steve Tracy just joined us. He's our current treasurer and vice president, soon to be president in January. Welcome, Steve.
Well,
And that would leave FB in Soonsong. I'm not sure if either one of you want to introduce yourself. Just need to take your off mute.
Hi, sorry, Vicky. I think we met a few times.
Yes, and you
my
go by another name.
yes. My name is Theo. I'm based in Switzerland. I'm originally from Malaysia, so I will not turn on my camera because I'm on my way to sport, and Switzerland now is about 6 p.m. So my excuse for this time. Yeah, thank you. Nice to meet you all.
Wonderful. Yeah, Theo, I'm glad you've joined us again. I think this is like 4 months in a row he's joined us from out of the country. He's very interested in reality therapy and choice theory, so he enjoys this. So we have David Lynch just joined us. David, where are you from?
Good afternoon. I am David Lynch from Richmond, Virginia. Working in private practice.
very nice.
Thank you. Join with me too. Okay, well, we're going to get started. Frenchie has a PowerPoint presentation that he's going to start with, and you can feel free at any time to put questions in the chat, comments, raise your hand if you'd like. I'm going to try to monitor that. So if anyone has any, we'll interrupt him and go. But he and I go back, I want to say about 12 years ago. And I learned some amazing concepts from him. And now that he's in coaching, I really felt like he would be good to share. It would be really great for him to share how he uses reality therapy in his coaching and teaching of these years. So Frenchie, we're going to turn over to you. Please introduce yourself however you would like.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm just gonna set this up. Good, I think that's working. First of all, I want to thank you so much for inviting me. Like Vicky said, when she means coaching, I'm not doing life coaching. She's referring to the aspect that I've always been a teacher and a coach, and my sport's been hockey. And I found that, well, first, let me give you just a little introduction about who I am. She refers to me as Frenchie, as you saw. My actual name is Francesco, and Francesco is a derivative of the word Francis, and Francis means Frenchman. And I came to Canada when I was 6 years old, and my grandparents would often refer to me as Frenchie, which was a nickname. Frenchie was the nickname for Francesco, and then Frenchie stuck. And all my friends always call me Frenchie because it was easier to say Francesco. So that's how I got my name. How I was introduced to William Glasser's works was back in 1988. I was at Teachers College at Lakehead University up in Thunder Bay, and I had a professor, and there was something about this professor that really resonated with me. There's just, he was calm, he was energetic, he was positive. And he started to introduce this idea of reality therapy in managing, behavioral issues. And he never referred to them as discipline. He always said, if you have some behavioral issues, and he recommended that, he'd have us write out these little contracts, and he'd always ask the kids, what did you do? Help them become accountable and aware of their own behavior, and then have them put a plan in place. Like, what do you think you can do to help yourself to not have this, occur again? And that was back in 1988. So that always stuck with me. Those ideas always stuck with me, but I never really did a deep dive into William Glasser's work till later. Fast forward about 10 years or so, I really I had the opportunity to become a vice principal, an acting vice principal, because one of our vice principals got seconded down to the board. And I started to use more and more of this idea of how to deal with kids that were having difficulty, whether it was being late or whether it was, talking back to teachers, but, having these little conferences. And I found it was really empowering for myself because I was able to take a whole different approach and not use a coercive means of dealing with children. And then I wanted to get into like leadership. I had to take courses, get my master's, but all the leadership courses were designed towards administration, but I didn't really want to do administration. I want to do more something under motivation. So one of the counselors I spoke to at the university said, well, maybe you should be considering like a master's in education psychology. It seems that's more of your area. So I did some research, and I was fortunate to find a master's program that was offered at Graceland that was called Quality Schools. It was a massive education program in education, but with the guise of following all of Glasser's work. And it was a true blessing. So my shift in teaching and my shift in coaching was subtle. And what I'd like to do today is just share with you kind of the approach I take in trying to apply both reality therapy and choice theory in real time, and how I perceive it, how I've kind of worked with it. And I will leave the kind of like the information I offer you is for you to take, leave, or use to your own benefit in that sense. So let me begin first by saying I want to start just with some activities. I like to do activities whenever I'm doing presentations or where I'm teaching for the first time, or I'm starting a unit for the first time, just to kind of set the tone. I then would like to share a little bit about my coaching philosophy and my perspective based on a little situation that I'm going to provide. And then I'd like to tell you like the what I try to do in building a championship culture. Like, what are my key go-to kind of intentional points that I try to live out every day, and I ask the players to live out every day. And then lastly, if we have time, maybe we might be able to set up a little role play where I have someone playing the coach, someone playing the player, and then someone can be the observer feedback. So that's kind of where we're heading. And like Vicky said, if at any time you have a question or you want to stop me, feel free to do that, and I'll try to answer your question to the best of my ability. So let's get started. I want to start first with a story. And the story is about a rowing coach who had a very, very successful season. And now, he's in a new season, and they've had a few practices, and he's not feeling that kind of intensity and the desire that he was hoping he would get from his athletes that they had the year before. So he recognizes he has to do something. And as a leader, he has to do something that might be different. And so he tells them, next practice, we're not going into the water. we're actually going to go for a drive. And he takes them out into a forest. And he tells all the rowers, I want you to find a tree that you can climb, and I'd like you to climb as high as you can go. Fair enough. So all the rowers go out. They're looking at the coach a bit funny, like, why is he asking us to do this? But one rower goes up 3 branches, one rower goes up 5, one goes up 6, one goes up just 1. And when they were all stopped, he said, go up 1 more. So the one that went 1 went 2, the one that went 3 went 4, the one that went 6 went 7. And they came back down. And he said to them, let's just kind of just reflect on what we did. First of all, if I let you guys coach yourselves, you all would have come 1 branch short of what you were capable of doing. So I really need you to be open to allow me to push you and coach you. 2, I didn't ask you all to climb up 10 branches. All I ask is that you give your personal best, that you do what you can with what you have. And then 3, if we can all agree to move up 1 more branch, then collectively we'll be that much better. So I like to use this story just as an introduction, as a kind of an invitation to the learning. You know, here we are. I ask that you're open. The fact that you're here midday, once a month, shows that you're open to the learning. You're ongoing learners. You've decided that that's something that's important to you. And I think it also is important to, you know, invite your players to the learning, to let them know that, you know, we're going to be open here and I'm going to learn from you just as much as you're going to learn from me, because your players have so much to teach you about how you can become more effective as a coach. That's the first little activity. Next little activity is I'm going to get you all involved here. What I'd like you to do, if you're able, and if you can't, you can just do it in your head. But what I'd like you to do is if you could find or visualize your perfect tree. And then I'd like you to draw it out. And if you're able, could you please just show it and share it to the group? And it doesn't matter if you can't draw, don't worry about that. It's not about the artwork. It's just about, I just want to see what everyone's idea of their kind of maybe ideal tree is or what it would look like. If you could just take a moment to do that. While you're doing that, I'm going to take a little water break.
I'm sitting here trying to think how to draw leaves, and I need about 1,000 of them.
That's okay.
And in Indiana at this time of year, we have vibrant colors for our trees. They're yellow, they're red, they're
Yes, very
brown.
good. Very good. So everyone has kind of a different version of their tree.
Mm-hmm.
So does anyone care to share? Or I'm just curious. I'll put on my glasses here.
Yeah.
No, and that's okay. Let's see it. Okay. Oh wow. That's beautiful. Okay. Fantastic.
I can't draw my tree, but my tree would be the weeping willow tree. That
Okay.
always
Beautiful.
That would be
Okay.
beautiful.
always draws my attention.
Excellent. That's great, John. So that's really neat. So the whole idea behind this is you have your players kind of draw out their different trees because they all have different personalities and they all have different perceptions of what their tree looks like. And then what I do is I tell them, you know, some of you, like, you know, like you said, might be in the fall. So not right now, you're kind of seeing these trees that are, you know, giving life away. And then it could be now, you have a full tree with leaves. You could have a bushy tree, or you can have a tree with fruits on it. And I say that's very important. But oftentimes in sport, all we see is what's above ground. And what I want to emphasize to them is that the roots are the true foundation of what makes something visible. Like you look at, you know, as a team, if we have good habits, discipline, hard work, we work on our skill, we pay attention to details. Nobody sees that. We do that behind the scenes. But the work that we put in makes the results look easy. You know, great students, athletes make it look easy because all we see is their results. But years have been spent working and harnessing those behaviors to produce such amazing results. So I try to emphasize here that everything we're trying to do as a team is intentional. We're trying to build that strong foundation that's going to give us a strong trunk so that we can all flourish based on our own different personalities, based on our own skill sets and talents. So that's kind of another point I like to make. Then the next one I like to do is more of an exercise. In a few moments, I'm gonna show you a slide that has numbers scattered across the page from 1 to 100. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna ask you to really focus on this exercise. I'll call out a number, like maybe 55. And what I'd like you to try to do is locate 55 as fast as you can, then count up consecutively from 55. So go from 55 to 56, 57, 58, etc. Okay? So I'm going to show you the slide now. Oh, sorry, go back. So I'm going to show you the slide here. So these are all these numbers scattered. In a moment, I'll call out a number. How do I get rid of this top thing here? Let's see if I can.
I think you can move it down,
Oh, maybe
Frenchie.
I'll do that. Let me try that. Is that better if I do this? Or is that
Yeah,
still in the
sure.
way? Okay like that? Okay. So I'm going to call out a, let me just go, no, I need to be able to get to here. Okay, sorry guys. Okay, here we go. I'm going to call out a random number. I'd like you to locate it and then see how many numbers you can find in 20 seconds. Okay, so here we go. Focus, and I'd like you to start with the number 13. Go. Okay, so that's 20 seconds. Just by show of hands, how many found 13? Okay, how many were able to count up to 5 numbers? No, very tough, right? Okay, let's try it again. But this time I really want you to focus, really kind of focus on the task. So here we go. Let's start with number 43. Okay, time. How many were able to find 43? And how many were able to get to 3 or 4 numbers? Okay. It's really difficult to do. And that's what I try to emphasize with the players. What I just put you through is when we go into a situation and we're not prepared. What if I told you that the numbers were actually positioned? I gotta move this out of the way, otherwise I can't get to my text. We're positioned in quadrants. That if number 1 was in this quadrant, number 2 would have to be in this quadrant. Or number 3 would have to be in this quadrant, and 4, and 5. Would it make this task a little bit easier to accomplish? Right, so as a team, the more we prepare, the more intentional we are about what we're doing, the greater chance we put ourselves in succeeding. So if you look at these 3 little simple exercises, you know, I just want to start by saying being open to learning is a great attribute to have. You know, the importance of putting in the work, that, you know, good things come to those that work hard, that being prepared is super important in how we do and organize ourselves, and working with an intentional purpose. So when we're at the rink, at practice and games, when we're doing our off-ice training, we're very intentional about our preparation, whether it's the rest we get, the food we eat, and the proper training we do off the ice. So just as an introduction. And then what you end up doing is kind of giving them a picture of your quality world pictures. This is what I'm about as a coach. These are the things that are important to me, and I'm hoping they will become important to you. So it's an invitation to that process of building that relationship. Next thing I'd like to do is just to give you maybe my philosophy, my perspective on this situation. You've been asked to coach a last place team who has not won a game. The players have already been selected. And where would you begin? Like, just give that some thought. Like, if for you as a leader or as a coach in terms of lead management, you have to put this team into a reality therapy situation. What do you want? Where would you go? What are they doing? Do they match? Self-evaluation and a plan. So think about that for a moment. And now I'm going to kind of tell you where I would kind of begin and what I would try to do. So in my situation like this, if we were to use kind of a bit of a graph perspective, just think of this line as being the player's commitment, and think of commitment as their buy-in, their attitudes, their efforts, their level of engagement, how it's demonstrated in terms of their body language, what they're doing, what they're saying, how they're acting. And then think of the other line as their competence, their skill level. How talented, how good are they at executing what it is you want them to do? And so you realize when you're kind of self-evaluating a team, you might have a team that's really committed. Like they want to be there, but they don't have the skill level that is required. So what ends up happening is you as a coach might be spending more time on building their competence than you are worried about their commitment. And vice versa. You might have a team that is very competent and talented, but have somehow been disengaged, right? They just don't want any part of this. And what you really want to do is get them into this area right here. You want them to be highly committed and highly competent. And what we call the commitment side from a coaching perspective is the art of coaching. That's where you're building the relationships. That's where you're really getting to know the players. What is it that, they need? Like, am I providing a need satisfying environment? Are we communicating effectively? And then there's the other piece, which is called the science of coaching, which is the X's and O's, right? So what are we doing in preparing our athletes to become more successful? How are we developing them? Are they getting the proper drills, the proper training to allow them to be successful? And when you look at all this, just think of it from a RT perspective. Like, what do you want as a coach, as a team? What are you doing, and do they match? And it's a constant evaluation. It's a constant process whereby you're moving along, but you could be kind of repeating you take 2 steps back, 1 step forward, or 2 steps forward, sometimes 1 step back. But in the end, you're always moving up the line, right? So you could be going up, down, up, down, up, down. But if you to look, you're always going up the scale. So just think about that for a moment. So how do we build a championship culture with CT and RT? I think the first thing is understanding why and how people behave. And I think for me, the Glasser choice theory piece is very important, because what really makes people move and what motivates them is an internal control system. And I have a better chance of being a lead manager or a lead coach than I am in being a boss coach. And the second piece is having an intentional plan and purpose on how to build this championship culture. So let's just dig a little deeper here. Understanding motivation. So important for a coach to know that, just because you say something doesn't mean the players are going to do it. Just like there's a red light doesn't always mean someone's going to stop at the red light. We forget that there's always a little hyphen there. There's that pause where a choice is made. So as a coach, it's very important for me to understand that if I'm not clear and I'm not providing enough information, then the chances of the players and myself working together becomes diminished. So how do we accomplish that? How do we go about doing this? What do we want, and what are we motivating exactly? And I find in sport, oftentimes coaches, begin with the results and outcomes. They're more focused on motivating for wins without understanding that there's necessary steps that need to be taken in order to achieve those results and outcomes. I can't tell you enough now how much more self-aware and how much more it's put out in social media, this whole idea of working through the process and not the outcome. You know, whenever a player is struggling, what do? They say, hey, don't worry about worrying about your goals and your assists. Focus on the process. Come back and let's revisit everything. So I think ideally, if you want to have some success, you begin by understanding the player's cognition and perception of what's going on. How well are we kind of communicating? How well are they explaining to you their own concerns, their worries? What are their obstacles that are in the way? You're constantly assessing that, and you have different means of retrieving information, from questionnaires to all kinds of measuring guides to learn about their mental toughness, to learn about their understanding of how to manage situations when things aren't going well. The second step would be like their mindset and attitude. Do we spend enough time managing that? Are we coaching that as well? You know, there's drills we do on the ice that are attitude drills. They think it's about being physical, but it's not. It's an attitude drill we're building that sometimes you have to fight through adversity even when you don't feel like it. You know, the other piece is choices and habits. Like, is what they're saying and what they're doing matching? Are they eating properly? Are they arriving, you know, at the games on time? Are they allowing themselves to stretch? You know, and their actions or behaviors will speak to that. And I think if you focus on 1, 2, 3, and 4, then you're going to get those results. And as a coach, you know, you look at your experience and, you know, what they bring is the present, but what you see is their future. You're very hopeful. As a coach, you're hopeful of what can be happening moving forward. It's not so much about the now. It's not about getting caught up that we're losing games. It's about what we can do in the future and being hopeful. So I think if we can do that, we have a greater chance of kind of motivating and working with our athletes. So how do we get our players going? So think of it like this. If you really want to motivate, inspire, and help the players to be the best that they can for the team, it's about helping them be the best for themselves. It's teaching them to think for themselves and to learn to lead themselves. It's about giving them information so that the players can really start to, you know, take what the information is, kind of internalize it so it matches kind of their own internal drives, and then move forward as a team in the collective unison, right? Thinking is the catalyst that turns potential into actions and performance. 2 classical leadership motivational statements, and I think sometimes this is, you know, important for coaches to understand. And I do a lot of coaching clinics, and I always get a little bit of a pushback on this, but I'm going to try to explain it as best I could. So first thing is that aspirational values drive decisions and behaviors. Well, that's partially true. Really, value, not values, drive behaviors. And what do I mean by this? Well, if your players do not see the value, it does not matter what your inspirational values are as a coach. So you can have a list of all these things that you want them to accomplish, that you think, you know, you're building an amazing culture. But if they don't see value in that, there's going to be a disconnect. People will be not buying into what you want to do. So if you dig a little deeper, players' perceptions are essential. So let's just take a look at one of them. What they judge or perceive to have value, they will pursue and embrace. What they judge or perceive to have little value, they will ignore or dismiss. What they judge as a threat and value, they will resist and fight. 95% of players' emotions, reactions, decisions, choices, behaviors are dominated by subconscious and mental habits or defaults. So to give you maybe an example of how I see that is, if you have an athlete who is, you know, gets very emotional, gets very nervous, he's nervousing before a game, if he doesn't or she doesn't, you know, work on a new reorganizing behavior, they're always going to be caught up in that negative loop, right? They're always like, you know, they're thinking, they're doing, they're feeling, and their physiology is going to be impacted, right? So it's important to help athletes through this by helping them understand what we mean by total behavior.
Francesco,
Yes.
I thought you were gonna say this is very similar to the filters of choice theory. The
Yeah,
knowledge filter. It's either
yeah.
gonna go through, it's either
Or-
gonna go through and be held on the side, or
Yeah.
it's not gonna go through at all.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah. And please feel free to kind of make those connections for yourselves too, because like I'm trying to explain this not as a trainer in choice theory, but someone who's trying to use this in real time and trying to make those kind of connections. So that's fantastic. Players react based on their perceptions and judgment of value. Let's just dig a little deeper. So classic leadership motivation statement number 2 says that value is totally subjective. Again, that is partially true. Value is subjective and objective. However, value can be measured to assure its goodness. Something is good to the degree that it has all the attributes required to fulfill its purpose. So the question is, what is a coach's purpose? Why am I here? Right? And if we use the example of a chair, like the chair's attribute would be to have four legs so they can hold some weight and it can be balanced. If it only has 3 legs, then it's maybe not meeting its full purpose. You might use that chair for another means, like maybe you might be able to use it as a decorative piece, or you might be able to, shave it down and use it as a low chair, or you might use it as, kindling wood for your fires, whatever you want. So as a coach, then, what is good? What is my attribute as a coach? What is my purpose? A coach's good is to add value to the players' lives. When you look at quality schools and you study that very closely, Glasser was always, he kind of had a twofold kind of definition for me on quality. He believed that students should always produce some type of quality work, but that the work should also add value to their life, that it's providing some quality for who they are as human beings. They're learning something that is meaningful to them. So players value the good when it adds quality to their life. Putting your players first means putting the team first. It is proven that highly successful programs put people first by meeting their basic needs, right? And it's not winning at all costs. Sometimes that, this is where coaches give me some pushback, because a lot of our livelihood is based on winning, right? So, I just took on a coaching position literally with the last place team, hasn't won a game yet, semi-professional. So you have some guys that get paid, some guys that don't. You're trying to balance all that, and winning is important for the owner. So they're constantly moving in players in and out. And I'm trying to kind of set up a process of whereby players have a sense of unity and cohesiveness, and that they're not always feeling threatened with players coming in and out. So it's a constant conversation, that if we don't put the team first and the players are part of that team and all we think about winning, in the end, I think that's going to be a formula for some disaster. An average of 40% greater productivity and cooperation when you're working with the players and the players are working with you. Think about that in business as well.
So Frenchie, was that research numbers that you had, the 40% greater productivity?
Yeah, so this would have been from I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he did some work on exactly what I talk about, the attributes of goodness. What is the role of someone who, like everyone, for example, there's intended purposes of things. So it's not always fully subjective. There is some objectivity in the sense that, for a coach, he has a role, and the role is to lead. And the role is, in this case, I'm saying putting your players first. And this is my kind of philosophy on this. So it's a little bit of my kind of changing and moving things around. So when we create a need, no problem. When we create a need satisfying environment, we do that by, creating a need satisfying place. And I'm going to show you a sample of this at the end, where you can try to tap in to all of these needs, because remember, all your players kind of have a different entry level. Some it's high on survival, some is high on power, some is high on love and belonging and affiliation, some love that freedom and autonomy, some just want to have fun. So you're trying to balance all these things. And I think that as a coach, that comes down under that bar that I talked about, you know, the art of coaching is how do we manage all of this when you have, you know, 30 different individuals who are all trying to, you know, accomplish something and also make something of themselves. 2 approaches to leading athletes. I won't spend too much time on this because I think we're all very familiar with this, but I just want to highlight the importance of this. So you have 2 points of view. You have those that believe that, you know, an external control coach is the best way to coach. And there's a series of all kinds of kind of stereotype characteristics that some of these coaches take on. Like they believe players are motivated through fear, that, you know, you have to hold a player accountable. You got to punish them. You know, you don't want to ask their input. If something goes wrong, it's the player's fault. And it's very much a boss kind of approach. And then you have also what we refer to as an internal control coach who recognizes that players are internally motivated, that it's about connecting the dots. It's
Right.
not about forcing or coercing or providing fear. I mean, you can do that and you might get some, you know, you'll get people that'll be compliant, but you're not going to get that engagement. And what you end up doing is you end up robbing the joy and the experience and the intrinsic love of playing a sport. I mean, you see all these social medias now, tweets about coaches that were successful that won, and players who just were terrified and still are recovering through their mental health because of how they were treated and managed. Right? So these are super, super important. Right? And if you look at any one of these, like, you know, a coach who says we, you know, a collaborative with the coaching staff and players, you know, he asks the players' input. You know how valuable that is? They see things from the ice perspective, you see things from the bench. It's not always the same thing, right? And you're able to inspire hard work and performance from the players through reason, right? You're able to, through caring. All those things are super important. So what are the costs and benefits? So an external coach, you're going to have relationships that suffer. What makes external control doubly harmful is not only does our belief in it create problems we are trying to solve, but it also used to deal with problems. When punishment doesn't work, invariably we punish harder. And that's right out of William Glasser's book, right? It promotes distrust and suspicion. It promotes what we call the disease of me. I'm not feeling any value, so I'm just going to worry about me right now. It destroys relationships and moves you away from creating a strong, trusting relationship with your team. Whereas if, you know, the benefits of an internal coach is you connect, you care, right? You build trusting relationships, you motivate through inspiration and information and add value and purpose. And you try to create a need satisfying environment that builds self-image and self-esteem. You promote synergy and teamwork. And what you're really doing is you're avoiding all those negative habits that destroy relationships, and you're trying to really focus on the connecting habits of supporting and working. So that's something that's ongoing basis. And as a coach, it's super important to not always, you know, like, what do you tell yourself between your ears? In those critical moments when it's live and pressure's on and things may not be going your way, like, what are you telling yourself? Are you able to manage yourself to stay calm and have a clear focus on what you want to do next? Or are you going to be reactionary and then have to look back and say, oops, maybe I shouldn't have done that? So these are all things that I think are important and where I'm coming from in kind of presenting my philosophy of coaching. And what we'll do now is we'll focus on the key building concepts that are, for me, this is my kind of viewpoint. It's not necessarily shared by everyone, but I think if I'm going to have a successful program, then I think everything starts with a clear and focused vision. It's like a shared common vision, a sense of purpose. We have an identity. We understand where we are, and ideally the players help build that identity. They're there with you. You're working together. You're goal setting together, and you're working literally as a team. It's not one, it's a team, it's a collective effort. Two, you synergize, you spend time in emphasizing the power of working as one. You know, like the importance of being one unit, and everyone has that role that's super important, right? Everyone's going to be there. Third is helping them manage when things aren't going well. Like, how do we handle disappointment? How do we handle taking a bad penalty? How do we handle when the referees are given a call that we perceive not to have been a very good call? You know, how are we managing those emotions? How are we going to be resilient and tough? Or are we going to kind of just give into it and default back to what we normally would have done in the past, which wasn't very productive? Trust and commitment to playing any role, right? So, you know, the communication piece, explaining why you're doing what you're doing and why. You know, some players may not always agree with you, but they'll respect that you've communicated and let them know what's going on. And I think the role of the coach is to, you know, make it important to understand that everyone plays an important role, just like in an orchestra. In order for it to make beautiful music, even the one player who's only playing 3 or 4 notes, we need those 3 or 4 notes in order to make beautiful music. Managing your emotions, cool under pressure, and then just really like your commitment, you're competent, you're caring, and you're confident. You know, you build that confidence through layers of intentional focus. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to take each one of these, and if it was in person, I would do more activities just to kind of have each of those concepts resonate with you. But I'll just kind of walk you through some of those activities and just see where it goes. Just have some fun with this. Are there any questions up to this point? No, how much time we got? So I'm just curious.
Got about 15 minutes.
That's it. Okay, so let's get moving here. All right, so first one, I have a little exercise for you. I'm going to give you a little test, a little fun test. So if you have a good memory, just remember it in your head. If you don't, write it down. So here we go. I'm going to give you some choices, and I need you to pick the right answer. Okay? I need you to pick the right answer, but you can't ask me any questions. You just got to pick what you think is the right answer. Okay? So here we go. First question, only 3 questions, simple. Do you think the right answer is purple, blue, yellow, green, or red, white, and blue? So think about that. I'm going to give you only about maybe 10 seconds. I don't want to overdo this. All right, okay, that's the first one. Second question, do you think the right answer is 4 or 8? You know this one, Vicky? You're smiling.
I love it.
Have you done this with me before? No. Oh, maybe you have. Okay, and then the next one is, do you prefer a vintage 1976 Mustang or a 2024 Mustang? Okay, so everyone has their answers locked in. Okay, you can't call a friend. Okay, none of that's going on. So here we go. I have a simple question for you, and I'd love to hear your feedback on this. Was the test hard or easy, and explain your answer? Don't be shy. Come on, we're all a team here now. We're all working together.
Wendell, you kind of shook your hand. What were you thinking? Oh, you're muted, sir. I bet whatever you said was wonderful.
No, it was well, it was, I did like this with it for 4 or 5 seconds. And then I said, I'm going with this.
Okay.
Then it was easy.
All right.
I could be all wrong, but it was easy.
All right. Anyone else have a little take on this, their perception? Yes, David.
I thought the first part was hard because I was trying to figure out where it was going. There was a lot said. And then the second one, I just thought, I'll just go with preference. And then it became easy.
Excellent. Okay, fantastic. So for some of you, you know, maybe at first it might have been like, where's he going with this? And it might have kind of, you know, got you a little bit off your back wheels. But for the most part, you all kind of adjusted pretty quickly and were able just to go with the flow. But the correct answers, I'm going to give you in a moment. I usually give way more questions because chances of everyone getting them right are not very good. But I'm trying to make a point here. So the answers are these, and you're probably wondering why. Oh, sorry. No, that's not wrong. It should be under 1967. Okay. So yellow, green, and blue, 4, and 1967 should be the right answer. My question to you is, did anyone get 3 out of 3? No. Did anyone get 2 out of 3?
Yes.
No. Okay, 2 out of 3. And anyone didn't get any? Okay, perfect, perfect. That's exactly kind of what I wanted you to see. I, as a leader, was not very good at giving you instructions nor preparing you for this test.
Right.
So what did you do? You kind of went with what you thought was the right answer. You went along with your own kind of survival perception of what was going on. But in this little test, all I was really doing was describing your logo, right? So the major colors of your logo, the purple, blue, yellow, green, the 4 cornerstones of your logo, the 1967 was the year of your origin. So, sorry, let me go back. So basically, all I was really doing was describing your logo. But here, this is the point I'm trying to make. If we're not clear about our vision, if we're not clear about touching base and having those daily conversations, then people lose sight of what you want. And when they lose sight of what they want, you have a divided room, because some people will do one thing, other people will do another thing, because they don't know. They don't know. They're just doing the best that they can. And so the importance of this is like that whole idea of communication, inspiration. I just want to share a little video that South African President Nelson Mandela inspires a vision while talking to Francois Penier, the captain of South Africa's rugby union team, the Springboks, who ended up winning the World Cup of Rugby. And he tried to unite his country through sport. I just want to make sure that the volume.
Tell me, Francois.
Does it work? Volume
Yes.
work? Okay, good. Go ahead.
What is your philosophy on leadership? How do you inspire your team to do their best?
By example. I've always thought to lead by example, sir.
Well, that is right. That is exactly right. But how to get them to be better than they think they can be? That is very difficult, I find. Inspiration, perhaps. How do we inspire ourselves to greatness when nothing less will do? How do we inspire everyone around us? I sometimes think it is by using the work of others. On Robben Island, when things got very bad, I found inspiration in a poem.
A poem?
A Victorian poem. Just words, but they helped me to stand when all I wanted to do was to lie down. But you didn't come all this way to hear an old man talk about things that make no sense.
No, please, Mr. President. It makes complete sense to me. On the day of a big match, say a test, in the bus on the way to the stadium, nobody talks.
Ah, yes. They're all preparing.
Right. But when I think we're ready, I have the bus driver put on a song. Something I've chosen, one we all know. And we listen to the words together. And it helps.
I remember when I was invited to the 1992 Olympics in Barcelona. Everybody in the stadium greeted me with a song. At the time, the future, our future, seemed very bleak. But to hear that song in the voices of people from all over our planet made me proud to be South African. It inspired me to come home and do better. It allowed me to expect more of myself.
May I ask, what was the song, sir?
Well, it was in Posisikilele, Africa. A very inspiring song. We need inspiration, Francois, because in order to build our nation, we must all exceed our own expectations.
Just very powerful how, you draw inspiration, and as a leader, how you're able to communicate. And I can't emphasize this enough. I know we're a little sensitive on time. I'll just maybe share this and then I'll move on. But there was a study done by Kouzes and Posner in the 5 practices of exemplary leadership in the military. And they asked the leader, that they all had their own kind of group of men and women that they were leading. They were told to prepare and complete a 12-kilometer hike and do it in the fastest time. The first leader was told to do that. And he said, when you're working with your group, we really want you to work with them, to have constant feedback, to encourage them, to let them know how far you are, how much they got to go. So that was the first leader. The second leader was told to tell his troop to hike and don't ask any questions, just hike. So he just told them to, keep quiet and just keep going as fast as we can go. The third leader was told that they were going to go 15 kilometers, but then tell them at the 15-kilometer mark that you made a mistake, you had another 5K to go. And then the fourth group was told to run 25K, but when they got to the 14-kilometer mark, told them, sorry, we have to adjust, we got another 6 to go. So based on, these styles of leadership, they monitored to see who would come first, second, third, and fourth. And so just by your own kind of observation, who do you think would have had the best time in 4 of these leadership models? Yes, David.
I was just copying Wendell, and he was holding up 4 fingers.
Oh, okay. So he thought group 4. Okay, interesting. Why group 4?
Because the goal was ahead of what they thought they were going for. Yeah, I mean, I had a bit of trouble with it and transparency, but I thought that they might get the fastest time.
Okay, very good. So
Francesco, yeah,
yes.
I'll wait for you to say the right answer. Yeah.
No, go ahead, please, John. I'd love to hear it.
I mean, this is only a little bit of track coaching that I did. Number one would be it, because any one of those other things mentally, what a runner does, if a runner's told they got to go 25, their pace is different than if they got to run 20.
100% right. And that's exactly what ended up happening. So they obviously finished first. This group finished second because they were able to adjust in time. But this group had kind of given it their all because they thought they were only going 15. And now they were told, oh, we got to go another 5. So, the role of the leader in building that trust is so important. And obviously group 4 had the worst time because they'd given up on the leader. They didn't know where it was going on, what was happening. So just the importance of that kind of leadership and how important communication is. The second point is the whole idea of synergizing, the collective power of one. And what I like to do for this particular is I like to talk about a pit crew mentality, and I show a 30-second video. Let me just get that caught up. My thing's spinning here a bit. I just like you to watch this. Pretty incredible. Under 8 seconds, right? You have 30 people all working together in unison. I mean, that's the kind of, like, everyone works at the speed of trust, right? You know, the guy who's at the front there has got to trust the driver to stop. You know, the guys that are taking off the wheels have to trust that guy who's hoisting it up is hoisting it up. So just something about that that's just very powerful. And then what I do is I show another video, but I won't now just because in light of time, where this mentality has been adopted by hospitals and saving like stroke victims who come in. So now in the emergency room, everyone has a role and they know that. Hold on, let me just, I won't show it, but I'll just speak to it, where everyone has a role and they understand that, you know, people aren't kind of jumping over each other, trying to get plugs in or whatever. Every nurse knows exactly what they need to know. Third one is what we refer to as the creative process, challenge the process, mental toughness. And just be like really being creative under pressure. You know, I think great teams always ask what is right with the situation. They, you know, where others see the problems, they see challenges. They focus on fixing the problem and moving forward, take pride in finding solutions, and they understand there are no perfect conditions. I think mature teams really understand that not everything's going to go your way. And then we can take a couple of deep breaths and we can move forward. Two awesome quotes I love. First one says, many years ago, two salesmen were sent to a shoe manufacturer to a small village to roar pack market potential. Sorry, I can't read. First salesman says, there's no market here. Nobody wears shoes. Second salesman, there's a massive potential here. Nobody wears shoes. Right? Just the whole idea of having the right perspective. And then in Apollo 13, there's a great quote in the movie where it says, you know, this could be our worst disaster in NASA's history. And Gene Kranz says, wait a minute, with all due respect, sir, I believe this is going to be our finest hour. So the leader never once doubted. He continued to focus on the process, not the result.
Oh.
How are we doing on time? Or you're on mute?
We're right
About
at 10.
2 minutes, 2 minutes, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I'm just going to fast forward a little bit because I want to get to the part where I try to put it all together. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to move into here. Okay, so I'm going to just move beyond that.
It's almost like I want to have you back to finish this up. 'Cause incredible.
But I tell you, okay, so this is what I'm trying to do now. It's going to building a champion squad with choice theory, reality therapy. It's kind of think of it as, you know, the whole process. Let's look at the application. So you take what's in here, this kind of chart, and then as a coach, what you're doing is much more intentional than you may think. So a clear focused vision, you have synergize, your creative process. So if you have a clear focused vision, let me just get these out of the way. You have an identity, right? If you have synergy, you have teamwork. If you have resilience, if you have creative process, you have resilience. If you have trust and commitment to playing a role, you have personal sacrifice, putting the team ahead. Managing your emotions, you have courage under fire, and you're prepared. So now, how does this all fit in?
Speaking.
Hello, Patricia. Hi, my name is Paul from Chalkanishi from the PG.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so if you have a clear and focused vision, you have matchy quality role pictures. If you synergize, you have a need fulfilling environment. If you have the creative process, you have behavioral system and reorganizing behaviors. If you look at trust, commitment, managing your emotions, total behavior, making the right decisions, managing that. And then lastly, if you have the commitment, the care and confidence, you have lead management, you have balance, and you're more effective control.
That's amazing.
So I'm just going to end with a little video because it's my favorite, and then we won't be able to do this, but that's okay. Let me just get to, oh, this was my planning sheet. Maybe I can send this to you all, but this is the video I want to end with. Let me go back one if I can, if it'll work. It's only a couple minutes, but it's my closer. There we go. We ready?
Wow, that was incredible.
And no, thank you so much. And on that note, I'll stop there and take any questions or comments or anything that might have resonated with you.
Well, before we do, just anyone that needs to go, I understand our time is up. Please feel free to sign off. If you want information, please contact me by email. This was absolutely amazing. I waited 4 months to get him here, so I'm so glad it finally worked. So does anyone have any comments or questions for him? Those that can stay, feel free to stay.
Yeah, Francesco, I thought that was terrific. And I
thank
just
you.
wanted to take a little comment, you know, that little plant you have growing from the crack. I went and listened to Coach Debo speak, the head coach at Clemson University, and he uses that to his team. He says, sprout where you are planted, and he has a picture very similar to what you used.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Francesco, very nicely done. Thank you for sharing those insights.
Thank you.
I'd be interested, Wendell, in your reaction as a longtime coach, someone who understands coaching and choice theory. What did you think?
Well, there were 64 things I found helpful. I'll comment on one of them. Francesco, you mentioned tennis. I teach tennis, and one of my goals is to teach other people to be their own coach. They're out there playing a match across town, and I'm not there with them, and they can't play a thing in their ears, you know, getting coaching. I said, I want you to be your own coach. And so the self-evaluation part of reality therapy or counseling with choice theory is so helpful. You ask people to evaluate their own behavior, and it's wonderful. But it's like teaching people, teach them to do something, or, you know, feed me a fish, teach me to fish, that sort of thing. So you teach them to become their own coach.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and
even if you know stuff quite well, hearing it differently from a different person with some different words and framing of things is so, it just expands my own kind of in-depth. Thank you, Francesco.
no, it's my pleasure. I just like, and one of the things we try to do similar to that, because you're in a team sport, but the more, like you said, they can lead themselves, the more effective you are as a group, because you're not constantly, they're not looking to you for answers. You know, and then when a player comes off the bench and you say, you know, what did you see? Tell me what you saw. What would you have done differently? I don't have to tell them. They know, right? So just little interactions like that go a long way in building that individual and the team as a group.
I'm pumped.
Great.
We had Steve Tracy mentioned it was a great session.
Thank you.
Rena had to leave, and she thanked you so much. Great information. She wanted to see everyone next month. And then John, you mentioned too, thanks again. You really enjoyed it. So it's definitely amazing. I love the presentation. Anyone else have anything else they want to share? Go ahead.
I thought it was
Dave?
really great, Frenchie, and I
Thanks,
especially
David.
liked how you interspersed the connecting and disconnecting habits and brought like more and more meaning to them. That was really cool to see, and I loved how you popped up the connecting habits next to it, just as a technical thing. It was really well done. Thank you.
Thank you, David, and thank you for coming. Appreciate that. Very nice.
Frenchie, I forgot to mention David's comment. No, I'm sorry, Brandon's comment. I was going to interrupt you at one point, and then we got off onto something else too quickly. But in that activity you had us do, he kind of did what I did without clarity. You know, he chose not to participate. Without clarity, I wasn't sure what to do. So I just kind of picked it because it didn't matter. But I think that's wise. Without clarity, I just didn't participate.
Yeah, and that's an option too. Like if we were in a room, I would say you could, if you think the right answer is come stand on this side or that side, if you're not sure, you can stay in the middle of the room, right? Because even in action, when things aren't clear, is not going to be effective for a team. So if I'm not giving you the clarity you need, you're not going to be as engaged. You're just going to pull away. You're not going to just follow and do something else. So it serves just as much of I guess, a messaging to the importance of being an effective communicator.
If any of you need CEs, we have those available. I put it in the chat. Please feel free to apply for those. I was trying to think what else we need to mention.
Vicky, if we'd like a recording of this conversation, how do we get that?
So the recording should be up within a day. Denise usually puts it on YouTube, and then she's supposed to be, my thought was that she puts it in the website, wglasser.com.
Okay.
And then you can share that with anybody you want to, but I'm pretty sure Denise has been putting them on YouTube.
Okay, so go to the website and find it there.
I think so. That's our YouTube,
What's an email address?
I got someone, okay, I've got Brandon's email.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? We could possibly send it, and then Frenchie can send it to his friends in Canada. And we probably have emails for everybody else. We could probably email it out. It was just packed full of information, and I would love to hear the rest of his speech. I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording.